Our next speaker is joining us virtually, so a new content for today, a content format for today. And 10 years ago, he was an IT specialist working at IBM. Nowadays, he's the IT product owner for Team Digital Assets at BAUHAUS and BAUHAUS. Please welcome Markus Hartmann.
So welcome from my side. I hope everyone can hear me.
Yes.
Okay. So first of all, thanks for inviting and for giving with the previous speak some hints looking to the requirements of the future and the requirements regarding different devices where media is consumed. And now I would like to present an example project where CELUM was customized at BAUHAUS to exactly meet these requirements, to have a system that is ready for the requirements of today, but flexible enough for requirements of the future. Yeah, my name is Markus Hartmann. I work for BAUHAUS in Germany. In the department Digital Commerce, and I'm product owner of the team Assets. Many of you maybe have been at some BAUHAUS physical stores, but the department Digital Commerce now is more focused on everything that is located in the digital world. Which means we are working for the slogan of the network Bauhaus of the future, which means everything that is located or specialized for online shop, for the web shop, for apps, and connecting the internet with the Bauhaus stores. This means the department supports all of the 270 specialist centers in 19 countries. And to give a short background on the online shop, the first online shop went live in 2014, which was only a product presentation system where no shopping was possible at this time. And until now, the shop was growing to now be one of the 100 top stores in Germany. And looking at the department itself, we are located in Mannheim in Germany. And the department itself can be described as an agile working environment in a very intensively growing environment. And our overall goal is creating a perfect digital shopping experience. So at the moment we are in the progress, but the target is clear for us. So if you would like to visit the shop in Austria, it's bauhaus.at. Looking at the overall project, I will now describe a little bit, is that the vision we had was establishing one single solution for global maintenance and delivery of all digital media assets within the cloud-based and scalable environment. This means we would like to have only one system where all digital assets are located, starting with images, documents, and some more complex asset types to get distributed to all systems. The topics I will talk about is first of all the target. Why would we like to do it? The overall journey of the project, the asset flow, the overall architecture, which could say that CELUM in this case is used as a kind of integration platform. And at the end, I will talk about the key objectives we have and about the requirements of the future. First of all, looking at the targets, why we decided to build up one consistent asset management system. The first target is really to focus on one single asset source for every asset. So we would like to avoid duplications. We would like to avoid assets within our system that have not sufficient quality, to have the best base to deliver multi-channel. So the overall target is to have one asset that can be maintained once and delivered within online shops, apps, some printed solution, and everything else. So getting the most out of every asset. The second target is to have a highly consistent shopping experience and a highly consistent front end while shopping. So as you can see on these examples, it's much easier to compare different products if the look and feel of the products, of the images, is very consistent regarding to cropping, to borders, to backgrounds, and to the position of the images. So this is one of the most important targets, to have this experience when looking at product detail pages, listings in apps, or maybe comparisons of products. Everything is based on images. Images are very important for online shopping, to get an impression on the products and to have consistent images and high quality image. This is the main target. Looking at the project itself, the project started about 2.5 years ago. And first of all, we had to get clear of the necessary asset structure. We made conception of workflows and made a lot of configuration within CELUM. A second important step was identification of custom implementations that need to be made, and the implementation of the main functionalities that really were must-have criteria for first go-live. And one very important step before go-live of the system was the initial data migration. So all data that was currently located in legacy systems need to be migrated first. And this was kind of a critical point, because this was a lot of data, and the migration overall took about 3 months of just data processing, and repeating this would totally have an influence of the deadlines we had. So this was a very important step. And this led us to the go live, which was about 1 year ago. And when first starting the CELUM application in production, we first of all started populating all assets that were migrated into the system to be spread all over the systems, so that they are now consumed by the CELUM application. A second step that then was directly enhanced was the delivery of assets. So this means when assets are delivered to different systems, not the metadata, not the binary assets were sent to the external systems, just the IDs and the URL to the binary data and metadata are sent to the systems. Therefore, the delivery of the assets is one core functionality of our CELUM solution, which means delivery servers, web servers for image delivery are part of our project scope. And in this case, we switched from traditional web servers to a cloud-based service, which is far more scalable. And in this case, we switched to a serverless solution to avoid maintenance and have highest flexibility here. And after go live, we also concentrated on main maintenance processes that were then optimized. Now, since the product is live about 1 year, we are looking at the future. And looking at the future, this means we will be facing implementation of further asset types, for example, videos and some complex asset types. We are looking forward to migrating of further data clusters into the environment. And one of the most important steps will be the focus on automation of asset maintenance processes. So since we have the target of a high data quality of the assets, we have to check the assets that get into the system. We have to check quality. We have to tag the assets and get a clear structure. And this is something that just needs to be done. But the more we automate this, the more assets we can process at the same time. And last but not least, since now the project run more than 2 years, we have to think of upgrading to the next CELUM version to benefit of new features like, for example, similarity search, which will again help us increasing the overall data quality. The main focus of our CELUM solution is the processing of assets that were sent into the system and the delivery of these assets. So we are not mainly focusing on creating content like text content. It is really focused on media content linked to products, which is created, processed in, let's call it, in mass production. So we are focusing on having a high level of throughput through the system and having a clear database to be able to react very flexible on future requirements. So having this in mind, the overall asset flow looks very simple. So it comes from uploading through multiple channels and multiple input types, but all assets that are delivered should be related to products because they need to be linked within PIM systems and other related systems. When the asset is uploaded in the system, then we have to take care of these assets, check the quality. For example, on the right side, you can see an example where automatically a service is called, where this image is processed as of removal of background, changing of format and cropping and resizing to have very consistent base sources of every asset. And at the end, after final modification of the physical file, the asset is delivered to all relevant systems and delivered so that it can be used out of any solution that is placed at the internet. And now the asset can be used and spread within different systems. In case of the CELUM solution that is now implemented at BAUHAUS, the software component can be seen as kind of an integration platform. So I think this is a bit special for this CELUM implementation because on the left hand, you can see we have several systems that automatically send or input data or import data into the system. So there is upload using the UI by manual users. There are different applications that talk via interfaces to CELUM. There are departments that upload assets to FTP servers that are automatically synced to CELUM. And of course, there are all systems that are that will import their data to CELUM. When the data is within CELUM, then there is a lot of manual and automated asset processing, such as the mentioned cropping or background removal processes and building up structure, right structures, checking copyrights and adding some needed information. And on the right side of this picture, you can see everything where CELUM delivers assets to. First of all, the binaries need to be delivered to our cloud service so that the images are physically available and can be used for any purpose, and especially for specific sizes, specific formats, so that everything is just available. Second thing that is pushed is all the metadata of new assets that were processed in the system gets pushed to PIM systems and CMS systems, and as well other systems that have to get to know this information. For PIM systems, for example, the images need to be mapped to the products. They need to get an order for the images and decide which of the images should be taken and which should not be taken to be presented at the products. And there are also other ways where assets can be consumed from CELUM. One important way is something where other systems are using CELUM as a pull interface. So in case an application knows which asset it needs in a specific format, we can address this asset in specific formats and resize them for specific systems. And this can be done by the standard REST API that is offered by CELUM. So on the one hand, there's the binary export, there is the metadata push service to publish to all systems. And on the other hand, there is the very generic and flexible pull mechanism to get data out of the system. And this illustrates how CELUM in this case is not just a standalone application. It is really one solution for processing many input and output channels. Looking at the overall system and the way the environment and the requirements will grow and change in the future, our team needs to be aware of many objectives. In this case, I just showed this diagram where we have three main objectives. One of them is, of course, the data quality. Our target is to have a high data quality within the system. But on the other hand, we need to be aware of the throughput through the system. So at the moment, we are talking about 700 to 1,000 new assets that get into the system every day. These assets need to be maintained, converted, and published every day, which causes, on the one hand, manual work, which causes, on the other hand, calculation processes and processes that are started and calculated automatically. And looking at these three objectives, which is the quality, the throughput, and the efficiency of our maintenance processes, then we are facing the problem that all of these goals are affecting each other, which means if in the future the throughput will, or the data that gets sent to the system will raise, which is something we would expect for the future, then with the same efficiency of our maintenance processes, we will lose our data quality. And on the other hand, with more efficiency, we could, with the same manpower, lead to a higher quality. So at the end, everything we are implementing and optimizing in the system has a strong focus on increasing all of these three key objectives, always having in mind that losing focus on one of these key objectives, it will affect to reducing one of the other objectives. Getting more concrete in this case, how did CELUM help us to reach these objectives? Here are some examples. For example, we are heavily using the conversion configurations for CELUM. So this is just the way we were able to have some automatic cropping for images, though that this is not have to be done by systems or persons manually. And of course, the delivery to different systems with different target specifications and image versions are solved this way. And as well as we heard in the previous session, more and more it goes to content that is generated automatically. We are also facing these kind of content at the moment, and this leads to, as we experience, very big files that have to be processed. So again, here it is very important to have efficient conversion processes to have these large files handled in a relevant amount of time we have there. To have an influence on the maintenance efficiency, we are working with bullets in the user interface, custom context menus, UI tabs. So to have every view most intuitive and efficient as possible, to make the asset maintenance process as efficient and fast as possible. And we are using the qualifier extension to detect assets that are delivered to the system and automatically rejected if the quality is not sufficient enough. And one thing I could address, we are heavily using, because of many import and export interfaces, are the system tasks that can be created within CELUM. So at the beginning, we were facing many tasks that had to be processed. And if everything would have been processed synchronously and just in time, then we would have facing problems regarding the overall performance of the systems. Therefore, we decided to rather implement asynchronous tasks that are specific tasks and focused on just one specific task that needs to be done. And these tasks could then be scheduled, they could be slowed down, they could be scheduled at different times, so that the resource we have can use the best to process all the levels, all the assets, and leave the performance on a good level, so that we do not have too many peaks on the system. For example, if a bunch of data is just being delivered, and processing of conversion and processing of some exports takes some time. So having everything done asynchronously, the processing is way more stable in this case. And what comes with asynchronous processing is always a lack of the ability of monitoring and having direct feedback. So we used Microsoft Teams integration for this. So CELUM is actually talking to us in case some automated processes have some problems. And this was kind of efficient for us to have this integration here to quickly react on some errors that might occur, because errors we even detect too late have a way bigger effect on the overall data quality or data loss that could happen than if we detect it quite early. So at the end, it's time for questions, and I would like to thank you. And of course, I would also like to thank our development partners, which supported us implementing the solution, which is our development partner called Digital, and of course, CELUM. Thanks a lot.
Well, thank you, Markus Hartmann, for that interesting presentation, a real insight here in BAUHAUS and BAHAG AG. And we're going to start off the Q and answer session actually with a question out of the chat. So Birgit, could you pose that question?
Yes, the first question is, how do you do the background removal? Is it done automatically in CELUM?
It is not done automatically in CELUM. It is actually done by some service provider, which are included via interfaces. So it is actually a manual service that is done. But at the moment, we are taking proof of concepts on some artificial intelligence algorithms that also claim to remove backgrounds for specific assets. So making some POCs with, for example, the ImageMagick instance, which is used in CELUM. We did not get the results that were okay for us. So therefore, we still stick for integration of this service provider, which just maintains the assets. But this is one big focus for us, to having this part automated.
Great, thank you for sharing that question about removing the backgrounds. And what about a question here from our audience in the room? Yes, over here.
Let's stay with the asset processing. How do you guarantee that the quality after processing the asset? Is this a manual step, or do you have artificial intelligence for checking this, that the asset is meeting the quality requirements before you push it forward to the channels? For example, a picture, that it is centered, that the background is done, that it is really the right file format, the size, resolution, and so on?
So partly, most of the things are checked automatically. For example, that there is any transparency of the background, that the size is correct, the format is correct, everything that could be checked technically. But for most important images, so not for all images, but for all images that really should be used within the web shop, we at least have to have one manual step, just reviewing the image and approving it. So in our context is the so-called approval process, where all images have to be viewed once, get approved, not out of a technical perspective, but just out of an optical perspective, to really guarantee this. One good example is having POCs for automatic removal of the background. There are often some mistakes where parts are missing and not getting removed, or some things is removed which should not have been removed. And this is just something that we did not figure out not to do without any manual interaction. So therefore, we are talking about this maintenance efficiency, which we really need to increase, and looking forward to more and more automation.
All right, so there is a little bit of manual data check going on.
Yes,
okay.
Of course.
And you mentioned there was 700 to 1,000 assets per day. How many of those are images, and what is the rest?
This is an example of the images. So it's 700 to 1,000 images per day. But we have to bear in mind that not all of these images need some specific processing, and some of them are just duplicates that already exist in the system and automatically get detected. So reducing this amount of data is very important, and so that not all of these assets have to be checked, reworked, and approved at the end.
Definitely. Birgit, another question.
Yes. One asked, how do you make it possible to have all assets itself in CELUM on the one hand, and on the other hand, to keep them adapted to different local availabilities or country-specific requirements? Keyword control in the focus of multi-channel.
Yeah, okay. Every asset that is within the system is explicitly tagged about the countries that are allowed to use this asset. And every system that is connected to CELUM needs to implement this functionality of what we call revoking. So we are communicating the assets to the systems in different countries, and countries are only getting sent the images they are allowed to use due to copyright restrictions and some right policies. And what is most important is that in case something comes up, that there are some problems with images that no longer are allowed to be used, then every system we integrate needs to implement a mechanism of removing this image. So in case we are sending out such a revoke request, the underlying systems have to process it. And most important thing, since CELUM only has the role of distributing the assets to the internet, we are the only system that are able to remove the asset from our primary server. So in case the asset got duplicated within the company, this is not the way it should have gone. So in the solution that is in our focus, we have the chance to remove this image on one location, and there every system was using the image with only the reference to this URL, and therefore we have the chance to actually remove it from the primary server.
All right. Well, Markus, if anyone has any further questions, what's the best way to reach you?
Best way would be just via email, which is just stated on this slide.
Great. Okay. Well, thank you. How about a round of applause for Markus Hartmann? Markus, I have a request. There's one more urgent question. Will you hang in with us?
Thank you. No, it's not that urgent, but I was wondering if you could tell us a little bit more about the CMS integrations you mentioned. Like what CMS systems did you integrate, and was that something that worked out of the box or had to be implemented by Kolb Digital or whoever?
What I could tell that we are using at the moment SAP system. It's the shopping system from SAP, and we are also using the CMS component of this system. And assets are distributed there, but this is kind of a custom interface. So the CMS integration is not at this level. We are with the PIM integration. So therefore, I just stated this integration on the slide as one of the integration, but at the end, it's just a communication of assets and their URLs where they can be loaded, and the asset processing then is taken care of by the CMS system itself. And this is again something that will have to change in the future, to having a closer look at this CMS interface, since at the beginning we mainly focused on PIM system and product relevant data and images.
All right, well, last call for questions. No questions anymore? Okay, well, you can all reach Markus at the email he just provided on the slide previously. And thanks again, Markus. One more round of applause.
Thanks.